everything is ready. Disha, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Disha. Denny is
Hi,
also there.
Desta.
Okay, we will start this webinar. So, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to ASEAN Young Architects Webinar Series 2021 with the theme of the future of sustainability. So, we're extremely grateful for the participation of our incredible speakers, which is join us in this series starting from last week until the end of July next month. Especially also for our today's speakers, architect Disha Shetty from Singapore. So therefore, I would like to thanks to them for sharing the insights here in our webinar. Yes, I would like to also thank you to Chairman of ACYA, Architect Rida Razak from Malaysia, and the representative today, Architect Denny Setiawan from Indonesia. And indeed, to all the webinar participants who attend here on Zoom or from the Facebook live streaming. So this webinar is also supported by Arcasia Committee of Young Architects, Institute Architect Indonesian Institute of Architects, Special Region of Yogyakarta, also Young Architect Yogyakarta Young Architect Forum, and also powered by Extalia Hobbies. So before we start the webinar, I would like to gently remind you that today's session is being recorded to be available for viewing post-webinar. And if you have any questions for the speakers, please use the chat box on the Zoom, and you can just start any points during the sessions. However, we will hold most of the questions until the end of the session. Then I will read the questions for the presenters to answer, or if you want to speak out your burning questions directly, please let me know also on the chat box. Also, please keep yourself muted during the webinar, except when the moderator gives you the permission to speak. So as the opening, I would like to invite the representative of ACYA, Architect Denny Setiawan from Indonesia, to give a short opening speech. Denny?
Thank you, Desta. It's my hometown to speak in front of so many Indonesian here. I'm so happy today because first of all, I still a representative of ACYA, Arcasia Committee for Young Architect, a committee in Arcasia who talk about a young guns, young architect in every country in Asia. And from the very first time I began to be representative of Indonesia, I keep talking about exchange of knowledge in between all country in Arcasia, especially the youngster. And I'm so happy today because we have Disha from Singapore, and also she is an Indian. And the two countries is the most beautiful country I ever visit. I love Singapore because of its architecture and its food, and also I love India. I've been to India 3 times, and I wonder how clever is Indian to make such a good architecture like they have in India. And you guys also have to go to visit India because it's wonderful. And the two countries Arcasia member country, and I think because of that we have to learn from Disha about what she will talk about sustainable and etc. But it will be helpful for us as an architects in Indonesia, not only in Indonesia, but I saw some foreign architect is hearing this session also. And I can guarantee that this session will be so insightful because we have Disha and our moderator Desta. And special thanks for Desta because she will become my deputy in ACYA, and she did a very wonderful wonderful event, a series of youngster who will talk. Last week I heard Zanat from Bangladesh, and today we heard Disha and several more good speakers, such as Rida in the last session, I think. And thank you, Desta, for this wonderful event. And also thank you for Indonesian Institute of Architects Yogyakarta chapter, and also Yogyakarta Young Architect Forum, and also all the sponsors who make this event coming true. So without further ado, I would like to sit. I would like to take a notes and think about what will Disha share to us. I think it will be fun and it will be insightful. So take your time, Disha. Thank you, Desta.
Thank you, Denny. You made me shy. Okay. Thank you for very amazing opening speech today from Denny. Because last sessions was from Rida, so it's very interesting. Okay, so this is my second time moderating this series actually. However, for you who haven't met me last week, so let me introduce a bit of myself. I'm Primavera Desta. I'll be moderating this webinar. For a bit information, I'm a registered architect from Indonesia Institute of Architects and also an entrepreneur. So before I pass to Disha, maybe just a bit brief about the sustainability, why we choose this topic to become the webinar series main topic. So basically, sustainability is kind of a trend word these days. Many subjects are now includes these words as the goals and the way to reach the goals. However, some of us may still not really aware about what is truly meaning of the sustainability and how we do it. So following through the sustainability movement isn't always easy, but there is no time to waste in tackling climate change, the sea level rise, food scarcity, and other sustainability issues. Some of countries has already focused on their way towards the sustainability movements to achieve the more environmentally livable city. When the top regulation is working in these directions, of course, the bottom-up movements will be always needed. In contrary, when the top-down isn't yet moved, of course, the bottom-up initiative will be the main engine to trigger for the bigger actions. So when we see this image, actually like a wildfire, the droughts, the extreme weather are just a little parts of the impacts of the global warming and the climate change that caused by the human activities. So this chart is actually really shows how our global temperature is gradually increasing. And this is actually a really serious problem for all of us. So the data from the World Resources Institute here showing that the half of a degree of warming actually makes a really big difference. It's an extreme heat, it's a flooding, there's a species loss, etc. So it's really bad, right? So not only environment also has been impacted by the climate change and the global warming. Actually, here we can see the social and economic and other subjects may also impacted as well. So many costs to adapt to the sea level rise, and then a short supply of clean water, and the shrinking productivity of a harvest for food, and etc. So can you imagine what will happen in 2100, for example, if this thing is continually going on? Can the earth will still livable for human and for all the species? So according to the World Building Council, building and construction are actually responsible for around 40% of the world carbon emission, and therefore architects, designers, and all project stakeholders have responsibility for it. Furthermore, as a young millennial architects, designers, urban planners, and urban designers, have we really aware about this? And Singapore is one of the leading country in the world in the terms of the sustainability movement. The government is putting a lot of efforts on this, and it will be very interesting to know more about that today. So our speaker today, architect Disha Shetty, is actually a permanent resident of Singapore. She has a master's degree in the integrated sustainable design from National University of Singapore. She's a registered architect in India. Her work experience range in the Asia Pacific region from Singapore, India, Thailand, and Malaysia. She is currently on a break and engaged in the freelance work on the side, and she has an experience in master planning, construction management, and finance with the emphasis of the sustainable design practice and tools. So I think that's a short brief and then the short biography of Disha. Now I think I'll pass to Disha. Okay, Disha, I will
Okay,
stop
good
sharing.
afternoon, everybody. Yes. Thank you very much to Danny, for the opening speech, and also to IAI and ACYA for providing this platform, and Desta also for the introduction. Thank you so much. So I'm actually really excited to share what I've prepared for today. And it's also really nice that Desta, you've already spoken briefly about climate action needs and the UN development goals, right? Because what I express and share today, it mostly revolves around this. Yeah. Okay, so let's begin. Let me just share my screen.
Okay, Disha, good.
Okay,
It's
good.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to talk about the tools and topics in sustainable urbanism today. We all want to live in a city, country, that caters to all our needs, right? And sometimes we don't understand why some are happier than the others. And it's almost like, to some extent, the development around us, the infrastructure around us, it nurtures us. So planning and buildings, they affect us humans in all aspects, physically, mentally, and emotionally, which is why we will discuss on sustainable urbanism today. But before that, we need to understand what urbanism is. It's nothing but the study of how the living population interacts with the built environment, right? So we will not discuss too much about the built environment today because most of us know what it is, know more about it than me probably. So it's almost like we forget the real environment out of the equation. So nature plays a very crucial role too, and this is the basic foundation of sustainable urbanism. So we consider ecosystem as well, the forest lands, oceans, all biodiversity like birds, animals, the coral reefs, and even bacteria. So we should also be conscious of how we are trying to become self-sufficient in terms of our basic needs like food and water. It ensures our survival, right? Very basic. So all in all, we want to solve all the problems created by global warming and ultimately restore some of the natural balance. So are we even aware of how plans in cities are executed? We know that it's not just about buildings, right? It's also about the transport, electricity, sewage, healthcare, availability of food, and whatnot. There's more. So I think as we go through the tools and topics today, in some cases where applicable, I will be considering Singapore as an example for most Asian countries because it's a very highly urbanized population here and very dense, but it still gets by in being the greenest city in Asia. And how does it do that? Tourists come here and think about it as a very modern, upscale, and close to perfection city. But it's all thanks to the research and development that goes behind it, the planning, the policy and execution methods, and also some amazing architects and planners who saw the problem even before the problem. Okay? So let's start from the top. That is overpopulation. Yeah, that's our main problem. So where our planet stands today in terms of its living population, world population today is at 7.9 billion, and we are still growing. And this is the top 10 list. Okay. And it's not surprising that the 5 in the top 10 and 4 in the top 5 are all Asian countries. So, and these 5 countries that we live in are not only having a huge population, but they have this large population of the youth, and they are also very resourceful countries. So my point being, in Asia alone, we have a lot of countries like Singapore, China. They have made large-scale improvements in terms of sustainability and technology. So it's really important that we follow suit and make changes, not just practice, but also action. So as much as we try, it can't be a single nation effort. Like, it must be collective action, and only then it is truly possible to see any kind of change in the climate or the environment, right? So when we think about following the sustainable practices, we must make sure that we cater to the rapid urbanization that is taking place. So needs for fresh water and food are very basic survival needs, and that will increase with the increase in population. And so will energy consumption because of the growing demand for electricity. So we will start by discussing on waste security, food security, renewable energy, and move on from there. Yeah. So, like I said, increased urbanization leads to high water demand. What are the factors that we look at to make sure that there is water security? I mean, of course, the availability. We think that water is in abundance, but in a lot of the countries, it has actually been drying up. And sometimes there is so much ignorance that human beings want to build up on dried up waterbeds and completely ruining the natural system. So we need to make sure that we take care of these resources and not pollute them and deplete them in the process. So following this, the accessibility and the quality of water is also very important. So in terms of availability, diversity of water resources is critical, to achieve any kind of water security. So let's say we have multiple sources of water, and the risk associated with the depletion or contamination of water is then reduced, because now the source is not one, it's many. And doing this in a way, we can also reduce the reliance on imported water from outside, especially if you're a country that depends on others for your water needs. So these water resources, they could be rivers, lakes, man-made reservoirs, and even seawater. So with the right technology and planning, it is very much possible to design natural water movement around the cities and buildings, and to use it in a way that we don't over-exploit it, So, and this is mostly possible through the collection of water and management and the different water usage methods. So integrated urban water management is very crucial. And this allows to increase the resilience of the water system and network. So this is also to protect ourselves from any kind of external climate situations or flooding and things like that. I mean, which are already kind of phasing at the moment. So this can be achieved by turning these risks into opportunities. So once the water resources are diversified, as we saw in the previous slide, like different sources, right? So the quality can be made usable through wastewater reuse plants, So Singapore, for example, has wastewater reclamation plants for both industrial and sewage water. And up to 40% of Singapore's demand is met through this method. And I think it's amazing, although some may question this method. But to be very honest, this could be the reality for many countries. And in the near future, to fight water scarcity and water pollution, and to obtain a reliable source for daily needs, I think this is the way to go. But there's also other methods like desalination. So in this method, you remove salt from seawater and convert it into potable water. And then there's rainwater harvesting and replenishing the groundwater, which is something we learn as basics of a well-designed project, especially in tropical countries. So for conserving water and this kind of method that still helps us to protect water resources in the long run, also maintaining the water table. So this kind of thinking is actually really important. So just like water security, with increased urbanization, there is increase in demand for food. So we have almost lost a lot of land because of over farming, overgrazing, drought, and we are still looking to exploit more land to build more buildings. So we need to diversify food production. We need to encourage local produce and aim to reduce the export of food. So when we have a source of local production, it makes us self-sufficient in a way. So this is not just at the macro scale, but also at the micro scale. We must also focus on how we can use abandoned or underutilized spaces, like rooftops, parking lots, basements, your garage to produce and grow food. And at a micro scale, even your balcony for that matter. Lastly, we also have a lot of scarcity of land. So vertical farming technology is a very good solution, and it is very advanced now. And it's very much reliable if we grow everything in a controlled environment with the high technology solutions like hydroponics and aquaponics. You can basically grow most of the vegetables here. And so this is very interesting. There's also innovation in the meat industry. So apart from monitored farming, prawn farming, fish farming, there is this innovation of cultured meat, which is a completely sustainable way of consuming meat. And I'm actually kind of looking forward to that. Okay, but let's move on. So the next issue being the demand for energy. So increased population. Again, it does not only call for increased demand in water and food, but also demand for energy. Energy from all sectors, basically. We know that we are now using fossil fuels on a very large scale, and they contribute to like everything, most of the problems that we have, greenhouse gas emissions, which in turn contributes to global warming, increase in temperature, and everything else that follows. So which is why I have sort of pulled up these numbers to show like there are studies that say a country's economic growth and its energy consumption is connected. So the higher the GDP or growth of a nation, the higher is the energy consumption per capita. So when we try to draw a relationship between the development of cities and how we should really start seeing renewable or clean energy as the only source, because from here onwards, the energy consumption will not decrease, it will only go on increasing. And fossil fuels in limited quantities, I mean, they make it difficult in our plans to combat any kind of climate change. And renewable energy is the only hope against this increase in demand. So what are the sources we have out there to ensure that we stop exploiting more fossil fuels? So energy, it can be harnessed through sun rays. That's what we call solar energy. And then through energy harnessed by wind, we deploy windmills and wind turbines. Then there's geothermal, which is heat from beneath the ground. So that can help to generate energy as well. And then there's tidal energy, which is energy harnessed to the tides. and hydropower, which is energy generated from the force of water, usually by building dams across rivers or large water bodies. Also, we can incinerate waste that's in the landfills and produce energy instead of just letting it stay there and emit methane, which is a greenhouse gas. And we also have other options with respect to hydrogen and nuclear energy too. But we need to ensure, because that the way we obtain this, the primary source used to obtain these are clean too. So out of all of them listed here, solar and wind are the most viable, because sunshine and wind is abundant in nature. It's regulated by nature. It's found everywhere. So we just need to place our turbines and panels in the right spaces. And these are all options that can replace fossil fuels completely, all these 7-8 options. And no doubt they are cleaner, greener, and safer. Right? So let's focus on solar. So as we know, solar is extremely abundant in nature, but it is also very versatile in terms of function. Like you can use it anywhere and everywhere. So if we cannot have a large solar farm, no problem. We can always have it on building roofs, facades, connecting large areas, skins of many developments, thanks to the technology of PV panels. And as the years pass by, the efficiency of these panels are increasing. So ideally, if you run an energy simulation test on a building that you have designed, and if it asks you to put panels on all 5 sites, then just do it, because you're just helping, So the transition to renewable energy sources in the real world, it's actually slower than expected. And that is the harsh truth, because a lot of countries still rely on fossil fuels so much. So meanwhile, we still need to reduce the carbon emissions. So carbon sequestration is a very important term, and we must put into effect without much excuse, really. So in simple words, carbon sequestration or carbon uptake or carbon capture, whatever you want to call it, it's the act of removing or capturing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So what this does is it slows down the pollution caused by carbon dioxide and other gases, and it helps us to combat climate change in a very, very huge way. Yeah. So actually, the ocean is already doing the job for us, free of cost. And for many years now, it's getting heated up because of all the CO2 it has absorbed till date, and hence the effects of global warming. And the best method actually that we can practice is plant more trees, practice reforestation, plainly put, stop deforestation. And even in the buildings we design, like adding green spaces, it can go a long way in capturing the carbon and releasing oxygen into the air. This technique, this is something that we already learn in lower primary schools, right? So then there are larger methods to sequester carbon, which is having DAC units, direct air capture. So these are like fans that suck the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And lastly, CCSUs, that's carbon capture storage units. They basically capture all the carbon released by power plant, and they store it deep down in the Earth's layers. And it's almost a form of what you'd call geological storage. So in the long run, this will form a part of the Earth's geology. The point is to not let any carbon escape and just store it there for as long as possible. So there also have been talks about issues with leakage in this method, but if we have found a solution to capture the carbon, I think this leakage issue can be resolved as well. So this is a very expensive method, but we need to pay the price for the damage that we've done. And there's still a lot of other methods of geological sequestration that's being researched and tested in different parts of the world. So just plant more trees, because as you look at using new technologies, the price you pay is also, higher. So let's just take a quick overview of some of the decision-making aspects, that can help us to achieve our goal for sustainable urbanism. So policies, it's very important that every nation keeps making changes to their policy and sets targets, which really make sense, and follow through and accomplish them. It's because we live in a world like that has a very top-down approach, and there's many problems: sea level rise, greenhouse gas emissions, pollution. The list is almost endless. So it's not just this. There's also technology and collaboration between different sectors. They go hand in hand. Machine learning, deep learning, research and development, any kind of advancement in technology. So time and effort is what goes into these things, and it makes our jobs easier and finer, even like to the last detail. So clearly, climate change is very real. I mean, if people are still debating about it, and more than looking at things at a building scale, we must have a macro view of it. It kind of affects everything around us. So we can't just look after ourselves and not just as architects and planners, but I feel that our main goal must be to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere as quickly as possible for a safer, healthier, and more just world. And it's all interconnected. So if we successfully reverse climate change, the ecosystem thrives too, and vice versa. So protect and respect nature and biodiversity, and we can hope for things to fall back into their natural order. So that affects everything: how we build and plan our cities, how we treat our water and food and natural resources. So it's a very multifaceted approach. Yeah. So we must always remember that it is not just about the infrastructure. So that was the entire point of what I mentioned this far. But it's also about the surrounding environment and nature too. So it's not enough just to adhere to certain standards on what is a green building and what is not green. But we need to look at things with a very zoomed out approach. One thing affects another, and that's how nature works from what we know. So don't isolate the natural environment from the built environment. This is why we are facing problems with respect to nature. So think about how other features need to be taken care of as well, because if we want to restore any kind of balance, this is the only kind of approach, Okay, so we are almost at the end, but I will slightly go off topic here, but also stay in topic at the same time, because I think it's important that I share this. So as architects, planners, designers, we all rely on powerful softwares, right? For drafting, planning, rendering. There's also spatial softwares for planners like ArcGIS, QGIS. And we use a lot of tools and plugins on these softwares, right? For example, Lumion is a plugin for Revit, 3ds, SketchUp, Rhino. So what I realized is that if we can learn some coding, it's always good to upskill. So it will go a long way. We always see plugins on these softwares, right? So these plugins, they are just additional coding that someone has done to make our lives easier and better. So I'll just share a personal experience. So I use GIS softwares extensively. So QGIS, which is a freeware, it comes with a built-in Python console and a code editor. So where you can write and run your Python scripts. So once I learned how to write these scripts, there was no stopping me. So it's just that sometimes you have a software but sometimes you don't find the function you need. So what do? You either wait for the software makers to come up with a new function, or you create it on your own. You could even list it out if you're successful, And the benefits don't end here. You could also write and create new softwares useful for urban planners, because other professions are already using artificial learning so much. Artificial intelligence, deep learning. And if we start using AI in planning cities and buildings more and more, I think it can help us track and record patterns, and also develop and work on solutions and causes that are almost close to perfect. It's achievable. Not everyone might agree on this, but the future is all about data, right? And how we can use it to make a positive change and for betterment. I mean, it's something that you can try and learn, and it will be really helpful in how you analyze things as well. Yeah. So, and finally, I think we can also reread some books. We may already know the facts, but learning should never stop, and especially from subject experts. So this book called Urbanism in the Age of Climate Change by Peter Calthorpe. This is written almost a decade ago, but everything in this book is still very much applicable even today. It talks about how policies and how cities must be a part of the solution while we try to fight against climate change. And the other book is a handbook of biophilic city planning and design by Timothy Beatley. So this is actually a very concise book, and you can finish it in a few hours because everything is beautifully explained, and how greenery and nature affects our well-being, because it's a good handbook, especially if you want to start by placing nature at the core of your planning and design ideas. There's also a lot of other books out there that carry a lot of useful information. All right, so I hope I was able to provide more insight on navigating the risks and opportunities of climate change, and also how it is to transition to a low carbon economy. I mean, although I didn't go into too much detail, so these were my views and my learnings in theory and practice so far. So thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Disha. Thank you for
thank you, Desta.
presentations. I think it's very good to start think about in the detail actually what kind of problems and the impact of the climate change and the global warming itself, especially the climate change. You explain a lot of things, right? Why we have to really care about the climate change. And then what are the details, like you mentioned about carbon sequestrations and other things. I think it's still a bit rare, to be mentioned in this topic as well. Even though it's already a big topic, but sometimes the details is not yet mentioned, all of the things. So yeah, I think it's very good, Disha. Thank you so much for sharing. But we will still have a question and answer session. So please stay here.
Yes.
So I just want to gently remind to all the participants here, if you would like to ask questions to Disha, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature, or you just can type on the chat box. I will call your name and I will let you ask the question. Just unmute yourself and don't forget to mention your name and your country. Or you can only put your question on the chat box, then I will read it for you and then Disha can answer. And also for you who are attending the this Zoom meeting, actually we will provide you the e-certificates. The link will be shared. Okay, the link, I think it's already shared there. So if you want to get the e-certificate, please open the link and then fill out the form. We will proceed your certificates around 1 or 2 weeks, then it will send through your email, the one that you registered through this form. Okay, so Disha, maybe we will open the question and answer session. So is there any of the participants who want to ask more to Disha about the sustainability, about the other things lah? that Disha has already spoken about. We got some question actually, Disha, from Facebook and other platforms. I got from WhatsApp also. So actually some of my friends messaged me and they send me some questions. Maybe we will start from this one, yeah. So there's a question, Disha. From your opinion, how can architects play a better role in the community to advocate sustainable urbanism to influence the environment?
I mean, yeah, we are all young and we are all very capable, right? So I think we should equip ourselves to be able to see the bigger problems, like climate change, for instance. So it doesn't help if you just talk about it and don't take action. And it helps if we stop thinking that the planet is just for us human beings. But there's limited land, and we must also be conscious about other creatures living on it, and it's their home too. So all in all, I think we should not only talk about sustainability as a trend, but as something that we must do so that we can solve the bigger problems like protecting the planet. And also as practitioners in the architecture and planning industry, we should be mindful of the jobs we do and how it impacts us. Like for every new building or city that we put, right? Can we put in more green cover? Can we try to eliminate the carbon emissions? I mean, even though it is not entirely possible, we can try to monitor its life cycle, make sure that we are close to reaching carbon neutrality. I mean, all in all, it really comes down to preparing to make the transition into a low carbon economy and just protect the planet, Yeah.
Okay. I think it's a good. I hope it answered the question. I think the person is on the Facebook, so I hope he also can get your answer. Okay, Disha, I got another question. So based on your experience of working, right, what kind of sustainability strategy are implemented, and how did you do it? Like, I don't know, in terms of the urban scale or a building scale.
I think solar extensively. Yeah, solar, because a lot of the master planning projects normally, it's not that somebody has to tell you, but solar panels are very efficient. Like either you do a small project or a large project. Like I said, solar is in abundance, and that's what we learned, right? But we need to think about how we can use it in a way that I mean, some people think that PV panels are ugly, but that's like a very basic step, because there's no other option really, because we still continue building with concrete and glasses, right? I mean, there are advanced technology of new materials that can absorb heat or reduce heat. It's material sciences, if there's progress in that someday, then we'll have better building materials. So the quick and fastest and the most widely used solution has usually been solar panels. Yeah,
solar PV, which is maybe not only in the rooftop, right? Sometimes they put it on
right everywhere else.
So that's cool. And what about the urban scale? Did you have any experience about implement this kind of systems? Maybe the solar PV or maybe other approach like from the greenery things or other things in the urban planning or urban design strategies?
Yeah, especially I think when it comes to the ecological system, like rerouting river networks and things like that. I mean, these are projects at a larger scale, but that's another reason why I said that we must be conscious about the jobs we do, because sometimes we know that we work on projects that are not really sustainable, but we must really aim for it.
Baru langsung gitu.
Tutup kan?
Langsung tutup.
Sorry.
We will meet. Okay.
Yeah, so basically just try multitasking. I mean, in all your projects, basically think about it. I mean, try applying what we learn in theory to practice. You know, that's the only way we know that something will work, and it's already worked. Like there are many countries, you know, that are doing it. So yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So you mentioned before that you have experience working in some other Asian country other than Singapore, like Malaysia, Thailand, and sorry, what the others? Yeah, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore. Four countries. Is it? So
India.
Yeah. So among those countries, do you think from your perspective, which country, other than Singapore, which country is actually already implement, or even the government is really supporting this kind of sustainability movement like the most? Which country is it? The government is supporting this movement the most?
I think all countries have these kind of policies and movements, but it really comes down to how everything is structured, you know. It really comes down to a lot of other things that are beyond our control as designers or planners. It's really beyond our control, because if the government works together with planners and architects to develop something, or to restore the natural balance, that is very helpful. But that said, not all countries follow the policies and the targets that they have in place. So it must be really like a conscious effort from all backgrounds, from all levels. You know what I'm trying to say? It's not just our jobs as architects, but it's beyond our profession. So it's more like a collective action. But what you're asking me is which other country, I think, apart from Singapore, is on its way to, you know, following these sustainability
movement kind of.
Yes, correct. I think they are all on the same level, because they do have these laws in place, you know. But yeah, but it's really surprising. I mean, like, if one country can do it, why can't the other country, you know, not do it? So it's not just with respect to our profession. It's beyond that. It's like a collective thing. So yeah.
Okay, amazing, Disha. So, actually, we got some questions also on the chat box, the chat box on the Zoom. I still have some questions from the Facebook, but I will move to the Zoom first, because I think
sure.
the people who asked the questions also here. So, okay, it's from Denny. Denny, I think you can unmute yourself and ask Disha directly, lah.
I think you have asked my question about the countries. Some have already have good mindset on sustainability architecture, and some others don't. But yeah, as we know, as we talk about Singapore is like a country obsessed with greenery. They built marina bay sands, marine garden by the bay, and etc. But if we can see, for instance, India, I think I haven't seen some significant project of sustainability. Is it about the focus of the country or the mindset of the government about to see how sustainability affect the advancement of the country, or How do you think, Disha? You know this country
Yeah.
very well.
Okay. Yeah, well, I don't think I'm the expert to answer this question, but what I feel is, I mean, like you said, it's also the mindset, because everybody knows about these issues. Like at the back of our mind, we know that the temperature is increasing. You know, we know that there are a lot of problems we are facing. India has a lot of natural calamities as well, everything due to climate change. But I mean, again, like you said, it is really the mindset of people, because there are rules, laws, and regulations, everything is in place. So it really comes down to the kind of jobs we do actually, and how we collaborate with other sectors. There must be that kind of discipline in what we do. So it really comes down to the mindset. That's what I feel. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Disha. Good answer.
Okay, cool. Disha, there's another question from Teddy Sanyoto. Okay, I can call the person here. Teddy, you want to say directly to Disha? Oh, okay. Hello. Sorry, you still mute. So please unmute yourself and then say something. We cannot hear you now. Hello, Teddy. Sorry, you still mute. Please unmute yourself. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, please.
That is enough the question from the chat. I want the answer from Disha. I'm from Indonesia, from Mataram City, Lombok.
Hi, Teddy. Okay.
Hi.
Great.
Lombok near Bali, Disha.
Yeah,
Oh,
beside
wow.
Bali.
Yeah.
Small island.
Yes.
The questions, you want to read the question, Teddy?
Yeah, please read for me.
Okay, thank you. The question is, do you think if we can design and plan a city or even a country with growing plants surrounding or our building and environment become forest? Okay. Do you think that all can solve all the human problems in this world about global warming? Okay. So it's like when we do the design of the city, we do the design of the building, we implemented all the plans, in the design. So do you think this also can solve the problems?
Yeah, I think the green component in a large way. I mean, what are we aiming at? Like if it's reducing carbon dioxide, right? Just placing green in any building will help in reducing carbon dioxide, and it gives out oxygen, right? And it also keeps the buildings cooler. If that's what the question was about, placing green in buildings. Is that the question?
Right.
Yes.
Can it solve all the problem we talked today?
No, definitely not. There's more to it. Let's say if all the buildings we build have that, or let's say we don't build buildings at all, we instead focus on developing forests, reforestation. I think that will solve the problem. Not having buildings, but not building buildings anymore will solve the problem. But just by having buildings with green is not going to solve the problem. It is a multifaceted approach. It's just not one thing. It's many things that need to come together. Yeah, and actually, infrastructure is the largest industry in the world, that it produces up to 60% of the greenhouse gas emissions. So why don't we stop building altogether? So that will go a long way for sure. Yeah.
I think last session we also talked a bit about this because somebody asked Janat whether actually is it also a good strategy, good sustainable strategy when we put the plantation on the building, and then the sustainability, is it all about, putting the plantation on the building? It is only that, or we actually should also look at the other systems. Like, for example, you mentioned about food, you mentioned about energy, you mentioned about a lot of, your renewable energy and other things. So basically, what we discussed last session is also kind of, actually a lot of people still think that sustainability, it's only about putting greenery on buildings. And then a bit the higher level is just, okay, you follow the green marks, you follow all the requirements for the, kind of green marks, or maybe the other names with, each country will have their own green marks, right? So for example, in Singapore, they have a green marks, and once we follow all the requirement for the green mark, means that this building is green. This already implement the sustainability strategy. And Disha, now, do you think that it is actually true, in your opinion, in your perspective? Is it, for example, we design a building which has all the requirements of the green marks, and do you think it's already, really 100% sustainable, or actually green mark is still lack of something? This is from your
Good question. That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean, Disha. How many percent it take place? Yeah. My question take place. How many percent? 50% or only 30% or 10%?
Right. Yeah. So like I said, I'm not the subject expert on this matter, but what I feel is that these standards and international codes that we have in place, right, to some extent, they try to have this kind of target, such that we know what we are doing, and we are not like mindlessly just putting up concrete and glass buildings. So it's good to follow them, but everything that we do just to attain a certain certification, that is debatable, because you see these old traditional contemporary houses in Indonesia, like the Batak house, and the traditional architecture. Do these buildings have any kind of certification? No, they don't, but they are so sustainable. They are built with respect to the climate and weather conditions, and they are resilient to anything, to everything, right? And but do we give them some kind of certification? Like, this applies to a lot of the countries where the traditional architecture, there was no kind of certification back then, but people followed rainwater harvesting, people used local and natural resources, people knew how to design climate responsive buildings. So it's the thought that goes into what we design. Like, we already have the research and the data and everything at our fingertips, but we still rely on these building codes and standards to tell us what to do. So it's not necessary that we need to aim for that certification, but if we design from what we know and what we have seen, and there's proof. And a lot of these traditional houses that are 100, 200 years old are still standing, and they are so cool. They don't really use fans or air conditioned units in these buildings. So it's all about research and data and how you put it together to design. And so it doesn't really matter what certification your building has or what standard it's aiming for. But if we can follow something that was done in the past, and if it has worked, then it has worked for a reason, because it respected its environment, and that's how everything was built. But that's not what we are doing now. So it really comes down to that. Yeah.
Okay. Pak Teddy, do you want to ask further questions?
No, thank you.
I think it's very interesting. Right, we're going to an interesting discussion now about we mentioned about the building codes and other things as well. So Disha, I think, like for example, yeah, just because I ever read one
Mm-hmm.
report. I haven't finished reading it, but
Yep.
I saw a report about Kotak Wat Hospital in Singapore,
Yeah.
and the
Yes.
Kotak Wat Hospital report is very amazing. They shows a lot of numbers, and they like want to prove that actually these buildings and the environments designed within the area is
Yep.
actually support and feeding each other in terms of the sustainability. And
Yes.
they really mentioned a lot of things, like not only about like how much the energy they can produce to be used for their own area, but it's also like
Mm.
about the spacious. It's also about the a lot of things. So do you think this kind of methods it's really matter when we design a building? Because actually, right, like you say, we have to do a lot of research, and then we have to
Yeah.
do also I think the research is not only in the beginning, but also when the building is started to be used, right?
Yes.
And
Yep.
then we can check what is actually happening. Is it the strategy is really works in this way, and what we plan? So do you think that all the buildings should be like this? Because like, of course, we will have some problems. Like doing this research is also taking energy, and then like maybe some country we still lack of experts who can do this kind of research, right? So
Yes.
do you have any, you know, in your opinion, what do you think?
If the question is regarding research and where you get your information from, if
Mm.
that is the question, is that the question?
Yeah. The question is
Yeah.
like, if do you think
Mhm.
all the buildings should do something like this so that the sustainability strategy is really be implemented, or maybe there's other way
Mm.
that we can do when we doing the building design
Yeah,
that
I
is
mean,
maybe
why not?
easier.
Like if there are successful developments already, which you say that there are numbers that show that it's made a positive impact, right? So if the conditions for another design that you're doing are similar, why not follow, you know?
Mm.
Because when something's working, there's a reason why it's working. And if you have numbers to prove that, because numbers don't lie. So if something's working, then it's working for a reason. So it's always okay to, follow suit, follow what has been done, right?
All
Yeah.
right. So for example, we have categories of specific
Mm-hmm.
example, and I think Singapore is also have like a easy tools, for example. For I don't know, like maybe you can give us a bit information about what is the easy tool, and how can we use this kind of tools for when we design a building.
Oh, that's really interesting because yeah, Easy Tool was something that was taught during master's program. So I think that this tool is not necessarily for designing buildings, but it helps us to analyze the data on hand. So it's mostly like there are a lot of tools just like this one. And also, like I mentioned earlier, we can also create our own tools, if we try to upskill ourselves. And because there's need for tools like this in the market a lot, because some of the things we need to do the research by ourselves. We need to go on site. We can't use the internet for everything, right? So it really comes down to, it's not just the Easy Tool. There are a lot of tools like that, that can help us do that. So from my understanding, Easy Tool mostly helps us to calculate things like the green cover, and helps us to find out the ecosystem services value. which is also a very important thing while we are designing buildings. So I think it's a great tool. Yeah.
Ecosystem services, is it? Can you explain a
Yes.
bit what is the ecosystem services? I think it's still not very familiar to everybody, right?
Right. Ecosystem services. So ecosystem services, it's basically nature services. So there are like many categories under this. So it's categorized into like provisioning services, regulating services, and there's supporting services and cultural services, right? So the provisioning services are usually the food, raw materials, and any kind of energy sources, and the regulating services are climate regulation, carbon sequestration, any kind of biological event, or things like regulating events, and then there's supporting services. So it basically talks about soil formation and the nutrient cycle, the life cycle of water, and then there's cultural services. So this could be anything. It could be like recreational, spiritual, scientific, therapeutic. So it goes on and on. So this is just like a broad division of the ecosystem services, but there's so much more in detail, right? So if I continue explaining that, it's going to take another 15 to 20 minutes, but there's a lot of information available. Yeah, but there's a lot of information available on this online. Yeah.
I see. So basically, some kind of these tools would be very helpful also, right, Disha, to really get the numbers.
Yes.
So that's why we just, when we design, we don't need, we have to really show, and we have to really prove that what we do and our strategies actually works. Is it?
Yeah, so it's like I said, it's not just our profession, right? For example, this tool is generally used by ecologists and environmentalists. So either we learn to use it, or we collaborate with other ecologists and environmentalists to help us on our projects, Yeah, so that's the kind of approach we need to take. It's not just a single discipline duty, a lot of disciplines come together in making something work. Yeah.
I see. That's so interesting. Disha, we still have questions from Pia Praptidita. I think I will ask also. I know this person, but Pia, you want to say your questions? Please unmute yourself and talk to Disha. Okay.
Oh, hey. Hi, Desta.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. I mean,
Hi,
hi, Disha. Thank you so much for the sharing as well.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, we're definitely heading to like a climatic catastrophe, right? And then, and all these data and research about like solar panels and solar power has actually proven to be, it's a great solution. It's I think that there's no debate about it, but I was just wondering that why hasn't it sort of taken over the world yet? What do you think is the ultimate problem or challenge with solar power? Because sometimes like some people say that it's expensive and stuff, but I think with they're doing really good research. And now they have invented like new materials for these photovoltaic panels. Like they're using ceramics, they're using other kind of cheaper materials. And if like you go on YouTube and you go on all these channels, you see like all these alternative solutions for these solar panel technologies. Like they don't look as pretty and as high tech, but like these things work. So I think my question is like, what do you think is the problem with this? Like why, like as we speak right now, it only powers a very small portion of the world. So what do you think is the ultimate challenge of implementing or using solar power for the world? Thank you.
Thanks, Pia. I think I completely agree with you. I don't know why it's taking so much time for people around the world to implement it, you know, like I totally agree. Like I still don't know the reason why people don't use it so extensively. It's actually very easily available, and it's not as expensive as it was maybe 10-15 years ago. Solar panels are actually quite cheap. So again, it really comes down to awareness, you know, and mindset of people. Awareness mostly, because if people were to know that it makes a huge difference, I'm pretty sure everyone would have solar panels installed. So I'm actually quite surprised too that, you know, people are not really using it as much as it should be used. Yeah.
Okay, Pia, you want to ask further questions?
Because I agree with her. Like,
Yeah.
that's so true. I mean,
Yeah, because
Desta, can
sometimes
I-
I'm just thinking like
Yeah,
Singapore is hot. I know it's not just a matter of a country being hot and a lot of sun and therefore like solar panels
True.
work, but I mean, sun is available everywhere. And I think that this can be like a really good solution for this
very true. Yeah.
climate crisis. So yeah, but thank you so much for the answer. Yeah.
I think
Thank
can I
you,
add
Priya.
some Primavera? This
Me
Yeah,
first, me first.
Okay,
Me first.
Denny first. Denny first. Sorry, Disha. Denny first.
Sorry, Denny first. Disha, it's an interesting conversation, you know. Yeah, we are talking about solar panel, we are talking about photovoltaic and some research about that. But since Indonesia, I live in Indonesia, is the I think the largest or the longest seaside or coastal. We have so many islands, and we have a little potential, I think, about wind power or
Right.
wind turbine power. How do
Right.
you think about that? Is that more efficient than photovoltaic, or we can see in another point of view? How do you think about that?
So, from what I've read, Indonesia actually has a good source of geothermal power, that is heat coming from beneath the earth. So this is very highly recommended in a lot of Indonesian islands because there are a lot of active volcano islands in Indonesia as well, right? So Indonesia's biggest source is also geothermal energy. I mean, the country needs to tap on this resource. That's what I feel. So, and like you said, wind is not that wind energy is not that easily achievable in Singapore as well, because to use windmills and turbines, you need a specific certain movement of the wind. Only then you can have wind turbines or windmills. But that's the thing, different countries have different kind of resources. So solar, yes, it's available in abundance, but Indonesia, from what I know, I think there's a huge untapped potential for geothermal energy. Yeah.
Thank you, Desta. Yeah. Thank you, Disha.
Okay, thank you, Denny. Vida, you want to say something?
Yeah. I was like interested with the question by the participant just now. During my master's, I came across this research in Australia. They did about the study of the HVDC grid, regional HVDC grid, and start to look into all the strength of each of the countries in terms of power, renewable power. And then they said that the solar is in Australia and in Vietnam is and also in Vietnam, and then wind is in Indonesia, geothermal is in Philippines and Indonesia. And then the interesting part is they said that Singapore and Malaysia is the transitory line for to actually move energy between countries. So having gone through this, and then also at the same time the movement of GATECO of the China GATECO interconnection of energy plan, which I don't know whether it's moving or not. So that got me thinking that it's actually to create this advocacy, it's not only one country. It's actually must be multiple countries working together to create a systematic solutions in terms of making the whole Asia to adopt to this green renewable energy. Yeah. So
I
I mean,
agree.
every countries are doing it very silently now, right?
Yes,
So,
yes, yeah. It is collective action. I think it's not enough if one country is able to make a difference. It must be together with a lot of the countries, because just among a group of 10 people, if one person does something for climate change, it doesn't really matter so much. The remaining 9 have to follow suit as well. So that's how it works, even on a larger scale, right?
Yeah. Similarly to
That's
what
true.
you
I agree.
mentioned, just now about, I like the fact that you said just now 60% of the infrastructure consume a lot of energy, because it's true that we are only focusing on the energy on the buildings, which I think the world is doing quite a good job in terms of doing the baseline or tools for green buildings. But we are actually not looking hard enough in terms of the energy that is consumed at the infrastructure. Like I think there's not many works on electrical aeroplane, electric boats, the big boats, and then all the trucks, electric trucks, because those are the main consume energy for production. And
Transport sector.
transport sector, those are one of the biggest in energy consumption and create the carbon footprint of the world. So I think probably if architect can be part of it, is actually to look into how we can be part of the whole value chain of the transport sector and reduce the energy there.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very true.
This was highlighted by my professor Jeffrey Sachs during his lecture. But what you mentioned was 60% was quite true. It's about the Thank you.
Thank you.
It's getting more interesting, is it? The discussion. Disha, we also have somebody who want to ask a question directly to you. It's Nur Ashikin Zakaria. You can unmute yourself and say your questions. Nur Ashikin Zakaria. Please also mention your name and your country. Okay, no. Are you there? Okay. So waiting for her also. Disha, actually, maybe this is also, maybe Denny knows something also, regarding the solar PV, right? I don't know, I got some information before, like, for example, in Indonesia, I don't know in other country, but Singapore, of course, already implement, a lot of solar PV in almost everywhere, right? Even on the top of the bus. So I think Singapore already have the bus with the solar PV on the top of it, right? But in Indonesia, some of the information say that actually the solar PV is still categorized as, kind of very expensive thing. I mean, even the government is charging more price when we have to import something. Because the solar PV mostly will be produced by some other countries, then we have to import, right? Then the solar PV is categorized as, like a branded products or something like that. So this means that
that's the thing. I mean, it shouldn't be.
The price will be expensive then. Then when we ask the people from the very smallest scale in Indonesia, for example, in the house or just a small buildings, like when we ask the clients, then they will still thinking about the price, of course. When we say about it's okay, the price is just in the front, then you can reduce your monthly cost for the electricity, for example. But when they calculating it, but they still decide to rather, they will prefer to pay for the electricity from now that we have, rather than they install the solar PV. So I don't know whether this is still like that in terms of the price. Maybe Denny also has information.
Yeah, I think that the problem is not only about the prices, Desta. In another country, if solar PV charge our house full already, and then the rest of the energy can be sold to the power to the national power electricity
Great.
company. But in Indonesia, it's haven't been like that. So what happened is the battery of the PV is burning out, and then it has to be replaced. And for your information, the price of the battery itself and the PV is this in the same price, or maybe the battery is more expensive than the PV itself. So that's why the government of Indonesia is thinking about to make the company the factory of the battery of the PV nowadays. But the our national electricity company is not ready for the PV. I think that's the problem, the main problem outside of the price itself. I think that's in my point of view. How do you think?
Yeah, Disha, maybe you have any information regarding?
No, I agree. Like sometimes any kind of renewable energy that's produced, if there's excess, it can always be sent to a national grid that then sends it to different houses or wherever buildings, So then there needs to be this understanding among all sectors, and how there needs to be a framework for renewable energy in the first place. Like, when you start, because if there's a reason why one house somebody cannot install PV panels, then it could be a good reason why they say that it's expensive for them, right? I mean, if it's expensive, it is expensive. But it's not just solar, the entire national grid that supplies electricity to your houses. You can stop using fossil fuels and try to invest in having renewable energy. Like, you get what I'm saying? It's not just one particular house or building, but it can be done for the entire nation, an entire city. Yeah.
Yeah, the good news is that because we nowadays find so many electric cars is promoting in this country, but again, in the same model of car, the prices of the electrical almost twice than the solar, the fossil one. So I think yeah, we have to do so many things about that. And the thing is, we are as an architect, we are all architect. Yeah, we have to think about a particular solution, what to do as an architect to solve this kind of problem. Is it, yeah, we put all our design have solar panel, or also, make a particular design of the plans, I think, yeah, I think I'm waiting for your advice to do something great of our design in terms of sustainability. Thank you.
This one is another.
You should also take
Yeah.
Desta's advice. Yeah, Desta also has some really very good ideas.
I don't know. We were in the same group, Denny, when we were doing the master. Like 2 semester, right? 2 semester we were in the same group. So I know Disha is very amazing. So Disha, okay, I think this will be the same. Actually, I prepare for this also, but Denny already mentioned it. So like maybe because there is no any other questions, I just want to like spotlight this thing. So Disha, in your perspective, or do you have any advice for all of us as a young millennial architects or young professionals, right? Number one, why we have to really involve ourselves in the sustainability movement, like why we have to or why we must. And the second is like as a young millennial, of course, we're not that much experienced yet, but we are already on it, and we have to do it, right? So, do you have any suggestion or any advice for us as a young architects, based on your experience, based on your opinion? What kind of even the smaller steps that we can take to be involved in this kind of sustainability movement?
Yeah, I think my entire presentation today sums up the answer to your question. So I really feel that just keep upskilling, and once you know that something's working and something helps to get things done in a better and efficient manner, then try to take action. Like, just don't be ignorant. I think most of us are aware of these problems. It's always been there at the back of our minds, but we really need to push ourselves, like to make any kind of change. Yeah, that's about it.
So amazing, so amazing. Thank you, Disha. Well, I think we have a very limited time, actually. I think, actually, we have here 70 participants, and actually we also have a lot of participants also on Facebook. So I think,
Oh my God.
our today's topic is very interesting, and I think, maybe some other day we can have a, like a second session or something to talk about this, right?
Great, sure.
And with you, of course. But thank you so much. Like, today's presentation is, giving us a lot of insights, and thank you for all the participants here, especially who are asking the questions, who are really involved in discussions. Thank you, especially.
Yeah.
Thank you also, especially for you, Disha, as a speaker today. You also giving us a lot of information, a lot of insights, and then encourage us to be more involved in this movement. And I just want to also remind for all the participants here that actually, okay, next week we still have our third speaker. It's architect Valeria Ortiz from Colombia. So for those who doesn't know about Colombia, Colombia is in South America. So she is a Latino, and this will be very interesting because, Colombia is like located very far from Asia. So we don't know, even me, especially, like, personally, I really want to know what happened in Colombia, what kind of architecture in practice in terms of sustainability, what they've already done, and what they are planning to do in terms of sustainability. So next week, please also ask by through this QR code. Simply this the link LY Young webinar. I think there's some capacity left. There's some seat left, but because the capacity is very limited, so just please register as soon as possible. And of course, we will have this kind of webinar every Saturday as a part of the series until the end of July, and with also various different topics, which still engage to the sustainability in young architects' perspective. Okay, so again, for those who are in Zoom, you can go to the link to have a e-certificate. So yeah, I think today is very interesting. Again, thank you so much, Disha. Thank you, Denny. Thank you, Rida. Thank you for all the participants. I'm Primavera Desta, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Disha.
guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for this platform. Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Have
much.
a good day, guys. Yep.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye bye all.
Bye.
Bye.